If you've been wanting a QD-OLED gaming monitor for a while, but just couldn't justify the hefty expense, this thing might be the ideal choice for you. This is the AOC Q27G4ZDR, a £399 1440p 240Hz QD-OLED. There has to be a catch, right? Well, sort of. Let's take a closer look at this thing to see if it's actually worth your hard-earned cash. Let's start with a look around the thing. This follows AOC's newest G4 lineup styling, with sharp angles and red accents. The backing is plastic, covering most of the rear of the panel, with only a small section of the metal panel sort of shell poking out at the top. To me, this looks pretty nice. There aren't any LEDs back here if that's something you're into, although realistically you're unlikely to see this after actually setting it up. If you do though, I think it's a nice look. From the front, you get a thin chin bar with what feels like an excessively large screen-printed AOC logo in the middle, and you also might have noticed the first cost-cutting measure, the controls. The screen printing on the right shows you that these use downward-facing buttons instead of a joystick-style input. This isn't exactly the end of the world, but feels a little indicative of what's to come. The stand though is the same one that they use for a whole bunch of their G4 monitors. So it's pretty solid. It's also fully adjustable in height, tilt, swivel, and fairly uniquely, rotation into portrait mode in both directions. I can't quite understand why you would put one of these in portrait mode, and even less so why you would use the stock stand to do it rather than a multi-monitor VESA mount, but hey, at least you've got the option if you really want it. I/O is two HDMI 2.1 ports, a DisplayPort, and a 2-port USB 3 hub, with the yellow port available for charging your devices. I should mention the on-screen menu, which is AOC's newest design. It's easy to navigate even with the somewhat awkward buttons at the bottom, and has all of the options you would expect. Picture modes, game-related options both to tweak the image and to add stuff like crosshairs, and of course plenty of picture controls. There are of course also the OLED care settings, which are almost all dimming in one form or another. There are a couple of other options though. Pixel orbiting uses the extra pixels at the edge of the display to shift the whole image up, down, left or right, so no one pixel always shows the exact same stuff. And of course there are plenty of pixel refresh options too. To be clear though, I've been using my Evnia 8600 QD-OLED for nearly 2 years now, every single day for at least 12 hours a day. I know, I need to get out more, I'm trying. And even with a full screen mid-grey, it still doesn't have any burn-in. Still. Burn-in just doesn't seem to be a problem on QD-OLEDs, it's not something you really need to worry about. As for the panel itself, having tested a whole bunch of QD-OLEDs recently, I can say that I immediately noticed the brightness, or lack thereof. At first I thought this was much like Sony's stunning M10S OLED, which was just shipped in an idiotic power saving mode, and that I would need to fiddle around in the menu to, get this to unlock its full potential. I was wrong. This is it. At least in my pretty bright studio, it was noticeably dim. Cracking out the Datacolor Spider X2, it reports at full brightness you get a whopping 190 nits of full screen brightness. Yikes. Most QD-OLEDs offer 250 nits, with peaks up to 1000 nits in HDR mode, so 190 is a decent downgrade. I also believe that this is quoted at just 400 nits of peak brightness in HDR as well, which again is a pretty big downgrade. Happily, the colours don't go down with the ship on this one. To the eye, this is beautiful. It's a little less vibrant than usual, although if you do stick it in one of the gamer picture modes, that seems to pump up the saturation a little bit, and my god, it looks stunning, just so rich and wonderful. To put that into numbers though, that's 99% DCI-P3 and 83% Rec 2020, and a cinemaphile grade accuracy at just 0.34 delta E average. You do still get a color calibration certificate in the box for your specific monitor too, which is a really nice touch that no one else offers, and yet AOC still includes it even in their more budget lineup. Great work, AOC. For content consumption, this is still fine, although unlike other options, how bright your environment is will actually affect your experience with this thing. Still, it is a beautiful thing to look at, and for content consumption, assuming you're in a reasonably lit room, it's still an amazing experience. For gaming, well, as with all OLEDs, the response times are functionally instant, which means the motion clarity is stunning. I'd also add that the latency was spot on to half the refresh rate, so naturally the gaming experience was incredible. Sharp, crisp, smooth, vibrant and rich, it is amazing. Regardless of the genre, this is an amazing choice. Naturally, the fast response times, smooth refresh rates and low latency do make it great for FPS games like Siege. The brightness does affect the experience at least a little, especially in a bright environment, although in a more stereotypical dark gaming cave, you won't have any problems. I tend to use my QD-OLED around 150 to 160 nits anyway, so this is fine. All in all, this is still one of the best gaming experiences you can have, at least in SDR anyway, and for that price tag, it sure looks hard to argue with that. There is a catch though, and it's AOC's own lineup. The AG276Q27G4ZDR, video in the cards above, at least currently on Black Friday week anyway, costs less than this thing. It is currently £379, making it £20 less than this for considerably more SDR and excessively more HDR brightness and a few nicer touches like better OSD input method and RGB lights on the back. Why would you buy this one when that exists at that price? Well, the key thing to notice is that the QZZ2's MSRP is £500 and this is £400. I suspect that means that once this is on sale sometime next year, it's going to be closer to £300, and that seems unfathomably cheap. As it stands though, the QZZ2 appears to mostly sit at £390 these days, so until the Q27G4ZDR comes noticeably less than that in price, it's actually a little hard to recommend this thing over the QZZ2. Still, a QD-OLED, albeit a slightly nerfed one in terms of brightness, with an MSRP of just £400, especially for a 1440p 240Hz panel, is amazing, even if it is, at least right now anyway, like AOC already offers an even better deal. I'll link to both of them in the description though if you want to check them out. Of course, those are my thoughts, so I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. What do you think of the Q27G4ZDR? Is this a monitor for you? Would you prefer the QZZ2 instead, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to check out more videos like this one, you can hit the subscribe button. You can also check out my own hardware, the open source response time tool that I use to test monitors like this one, available at osrtt.com, linked in the description. And otherwise, feel free to check out plenty of other videos in the end cards, including the AG276QZZ2 video. Try and say that really fast. It's quite difficult. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next video.